Zaravel 9 pressed her 6 fingers against the cool metal surface of the observation deck. Through the large window she could see Earth spinning slowly below. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from this distance. But Zara knew better. She had been watching the humans for 20 years now. The council had given her a simple job: watch Earth, learn about humans, write reports. Most council members thought humans were not important. They were loud. They fought each other. They sent strange messages into space about pizza and cat videos. The council called them a Class C species. That meant they were not dangerous. Zara was not so sure. She walked to her workstation and turned on the listening equipment. Right away, she heard them. Thousands of human voices talking at the same time. Radio signals from their cities. TV shows about people falling down. Music that made no sense. News reports about wars and peace talks happening on the same day. "Listen to this," Zara said to her assistant, a young Vorthon named Klex. The speakers, filled with human chatter. A woman in something called Tokyo was ordering food. A man in London was arguing about weather. Children in Brazil were singing songs. Soldiers in some desert were asking for supplies. It never stopped. "They are so noisy," Klex said, covering his ear holes. "How do they think with all this noise?" Zara smiled. That was the question that kept her awake at night. Humans made noise, constantly. But somehow they still built cities and spaceships. They fought wars but also sent messages of friendship to the stars. They seemed chaotic, but they had survived ice ages and plagues and their own weapons. Far below on Earth, Jack Morrison was having his own problems with noise. He stood in the control room of humanity's newest spaceship, the Meridian. Around him, his crew was getting ready for their first trip to another star. "Amy, check the engines again," Jack said to his pilot. Amy Richardson nodded and pushed buttons on her control panel. "Engines look good, Jack, ready to make history." Carlos Rivera looked up from his engineering station. "All systems are working fine. We can leave anytime." Lisa Park adjusted her headset at the communications desk. "Houston is asking for another status update. They want to know everything." Jack sighed. Earth wanted constant updates. Every government, every news station, every person with a radio wanted to know what they were doing. The mission was supposed to be secret, but everyone on Earth seemed to be listening. "Tell them we are still go for launch tomorrow," Jack said. Lisa started typing her report. At the same time, she was getting messages from her family. Her mom wanted to know if she was eating enough. Her brother wanted to know if aliens were real. Her friends wanted selfies from space. This was normal for humans. They shared everything. They could not help themselves. 3 star systems away, Admiral Thekvor of the Karathi Empire was also listening to human communications, but he was not interested in their cat videos. He wanted to know about their weapons and their weaknesses. Thekvor was a tall, gray creature with 4 arms and red eyes. His species had conquered 17 star systems by being smart about war. They studied their enemies first. They learned their languages. They found their weak spots. Humans seemed very weak. "Look at this," Thekvor said to his officers. He played a recording of human radio signals. "They tell us where their armies are. They show us their weapons. They even argue about battle plans on open channels." His second-in-command, a female named Vextar, laughed with a sound like grinding metal. "They will be easy to defeat, Admiral. My ships can be ready in 1 cycle." "No," Thekvor said. "We will take our time. Study them more. Humans are numerous and they seem to adapt quickly, but they cannot keep secrets. That will be their downfall." Back on the observation station, Zara was reading reports from other council watchers. All of them said the same thing. Humans were too chaotic to be dangerous. They spent more time fighting each other than building defenses. Their technology was advancing, but slowly. "The humans launched another probe today," Klex reported. "It is heading toward Proxima Centauri." Zara nodded. She had been tracking human space exploration for years. They sent robotic probes first, always talking about what they found. Then they sent small manned missions, broadcasting every detail. Back to Earth. Soon they would send bigger ships with more people. "They never learned to be quiet," Klex said. "Even their military uses open radio channels." That is what makes them interesting, Zara replied. Most species learn to hide their thoughts when they reach space. Humans share everything, even their fears. She pulled up a recording from earlier that day. A human general was giving a speech about peace and cooperation. At the same time, other humans were testing new weapons. The contradiction fascinated her. On Earth, Jack Morrison was having dinner with his crew in the Meridian's small dining area. Tomorrow they would launch toward Proxima Centauri. It would take them 6 months to get there. My kids want to know if we will meet real aliens, Amy said, reading messages on her tablet. Tell them we hope to, Jack said. The radio signals from Proxima suggest there might be someone there. Carlos looked worried. What if they are not friendly? Then we follow Protocol 7, Jack said. Send the warning message and get home as fast as we can. Lisa was still typing updates for Earth. The news people want to interview us during the flight. Every day. Jack shook his head. We are supposed to be explorers, not entertainers. Tell that to the people paying for this mission, Amy said with a laugh. None of them knew that the Karathi were planning to attack Earth in 2 months. None of them knew that the Council had been watching them for centuries. They just knew they were about to become the first humans to visit another star. The next morning, the Meridian launched from Earth orbit. Within minutes, every human on the planet knew about it. Radio stations played the audio of their engines starting. TV stations showed pictures of the ship leaving the solar system. Children in schools stopped their lessons to wave at the sky. Zara watched it all from her station. The humans were so proud, so excited, so noisy. They had no idea that their loud, cheerful nature had painted a target on their world. She started writing her weekly report to the Council. Humans remain predictable. In their chaos, she typed, recommend continued observation. No threat level change required. But as she watched Earth's broadcast that night, showing celebrations in every major city, she felt something she had never felt before when watching aliens. She felt worried for them. In the darkness between stars, Admiral Thekvor gave the order to begin moving his fleet toward Earth. The humans would never see them coming. They were too busy talking to listen for the sound of approaching warships. The invasion would begin soon, and when it did, the galaxy would discover what happened. When someone finally decided to make the humans be quiet, the first Karathi ships appeared near Earth's moon on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Thekvor expected the humans to panic. He expected them to flood the radio channels with desperate calls for help. He expected chaos. Instead, he got something that had never happened before in galactic history: complete silence. General Patricia Hayes stood in the Global Defense Command Center, buried deep under the Colorado mountains. Around her, hundreds of people worked at computer screens and communication stations. But unlike every other day in human history, no one was talking into radios. Confirm all units have received Silent Dawn protocols, Patricia said to her aide, Colonel Peter Barnes. Peter nodded and checked his tablet. All military bases report ready. All governments have activated emergency plans. All civilian communication networks are standing by for shutdown. Patricia looked at the main screen showing the alien ships approaching Earth. She had known this day would come. For 50 years, the world's governments had been preparing in secret. They had listened to signals from space. They had tracked alien movements. They had learned that Earth was being watched. More importantly, they had learned that every species in the galaxy fought wars by listening to each other's communications. Send the acknowledgement, Patricia ordered. The communication officer, Major Lisa Chen, sent a single brief message toward the alien fleet. Message received. Earth acknowledges. Then she reached over and pressed a red button marked Silent Dawn. All across Earth, every radio station went quiet. Every TV broadcast stopped. Every cell phone network shut down. Military radios went silent. Even emergency services switched to pre-planned protocols that needed no radio communication. For the first time in over a century, Earth stopped talking to itself. On the observation station, Zara Vel-9 stared at her instruments in shock. The displays showed nothing but empty space where human communication should be. She checked her equipment 3 times. Everything was working perfectly. "Klex," she called to her assistant. "Are you getting anything from Earth?" The young Vorthan ran diagnostics on the backup systems. "Nothing, senior researcher. All human. Communications have stopped." "That is impossible," Zara said. "Humans cannot stop talking. They have been broadcasting for over 200 years without stopping once." Klex looked confused. "Maybe the aliens destroyed their communication systems." Zara shook her head. "The readings show all their equipment is still working. They have simply stopped using it." In space near Earth's moon, Admiral Thekvor was having the same problem. His communication experts could detect human radio equipment, but none of it was active. His intelligence officers had planned this invasion around intercepted human messages. Now they had nothing to intercept. "Report." Thekvor commanded his bridge crew. "All human military communications have ceased," reported Intelligence Officer Kex-9. "We cannot track their troop movements or battle plans." "What about civilian communications?" Thekvor asked. "Also silent. Their entertainment broadcasts, news reports, and personal communications are all offline." Thekvor felt the first touch of concern. In 40 years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that could coordinate planet-wide communication. Silence. Most species could barely agree on what to have for breakfast, let alone when to stop talking entirely. "Begin landing operations," he ordered. "If they want to play silent, we will make them scream." The first Karathi transport ships headed toward Earth's surface. They targeted major cities, expecting to find panicked humans running in all directions. Instead, they found something much worse: organized resistance. Lieutenant Tom Jackson crouched behind a concrete barrier in what used to be downtown Denver. Around him, 50 other soldiers waited for the alien dropships to land. None of them spoke. They all knew their jobs. Tom had trained for this day for 5 years. Every soldier on Earth had learned the Silent Dawn protocols. No radio chatter. No electronic communication. Everything was planned in advance with simple hand signals and pre-positioned supply caches. The alien ships landed with a thunderous noise. Tall gray creatures with forearms climbed out carrying weapons that glowed red. They spread out in formation, clearly looking for defending humans to kill. Tom raised his hand and made a simple gesture. Around the city, 1,000 humans opened fire at exactly the same moment. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they were expecting to fight a chaotic, disorganized enemy. Instead, they faced perfectly coordinated attacks from every direction. Human forces struck and then disappeared into buildings and tunnels. When the aliens tried to chase them, they found only empty spaces and booby traps. On the Karathi command ship, Admiral Thekvor watched his forces take heavy casualties in every landing zone. His officers could not understand what was happening. "Crow, are they coordinating without communications?" demanded Vextar. "Our sensors detect no radio signals, no data transmissions, nothing." "Perhaps they developed some new technology," suggested the ship's science officer. Thekvor studied the tactical displays. Human attacks were happening simultaneously across multiple continents. Small human spacecraft were launching coordinated strikes against his orbital vessels. Everything was too precise, too well timed for a species that should be fighting blindly. "Prepare the bombardment ships," he ordered. "If ground forces cannot secure the planet quickly, we will soften it up from orbit." But the bombardment ships never got the chance to fire. Commander Steve Collins watched the alien fleet through the periscope of his submarine-like spacecraft, the Nightfall. Around him, his crew worked in complete silence, using hand signals and pre-written orders. They had been hiding in Earth's asteroid belt for 3 days, waiting for this moment. Steve's crew included Maria Santos, a former civilian engineer who now designed weapons, Ryan Clark, an ex-military pilot who could fly anything, and Nicole Turner, who had given up her job as a radio DJ to become a tactical officer. Steve pointed at the alien command ship and made a cutting motion across his throat. His crew nodded and began preparing for attack. The Nightfall was not like the spaceship humans had been building for civilian use. It was designed entirely for war, with no communications equipment at all. The crew had trained together for so long that they could anticipate each other's actions without speaking. 3 more ships like the Nightfall emerged from hiding spots throughout the solar system. They moved toward the Karathi fleet in perfect coordination, their attacks timed to hit multiple targets simultaneously. The aliens never saw them coming. 6 months later, Jack Morrison and his crew aboard the Meridian were still traveling toward Proxima Centauri when they received an emergency recall message. It was the first communication from Earth they had gotten in months. All human vessels returned to Earth immediately, Lisa Park read from her communication station. Priority Alpha protocols in effect. Amy Richardson looked confused. What are Priority Alpha protocols? Jack felt a cold knot form in his stomach. It means Earth is at war. Carlos Rivera was already calculating their return trip. It will take us 6 months to get home, even at maximum speed. Then we better get started, Jack said. As the Meridian turned around and began the long journey home, Lisa tried to contact Earth for more information. But the only answer she got was the same brief message, repeated once per day. Silent Dawn active. Maintain Communication Protocol 7. Protocol 7 meant maintain minimum communication and await further orders. Back on Earth, the war was already changing. The initial Karathi invasion had been stopped, but more alien ships were coming. The difference was that now the aliens were frightened. They had expected to fight a primitive, noisy species that would betray its own positions with constant chatter. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that moved like a single organism, striking everywhere at once with perfect timing, and then vanishing back into the dark. General Patricia Hayes reviewed the latest battle reports in her underground command center. The aliens were bringing more ships, but they were also making mistakes. They were so used to fighting enemies who talked too much that they could not adapt to fighting an enemy that said nothing at all. "Ma'am," Colonel Peter Barnes said, approaching, with a new intelligence report. "Our deep space sensors are detecting more alien fleets moving toward Earth. Not just the gray ones. Other species too." Patricia nodded. She had expected this. When one galactic species failed to conquer a world, others would want to try, but they would all make the same mistake. They would expect humans to fight like other aliens. "Maintain Silent Dawn protocols," she ordered, "and prepare Phase 2. Peter looked curious, but did not ask questions. In the old days, he would have demanded details, argued about strategy, maybe even called a meeting. But Silent Dawn had changed everything. Trust and preparation replaced endless discussion. As Earth's second night of silence fell, the planet looked peaceful from space. No radio signals escaped into the dark, no television broadcasts lit up the ionosphere, no cell phone chatter filled the air. But in bunkers and hidden bases around the world, humans were preparing for something the galaxy had never seen before, a completely silent war. 6 months had passed since Earth went silent, and Admiral Thekvor was losing his mind. Half of his invasion fleet was destroyed. The other half was trapped in Earth's solar system, hunted by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished like ghosts. "Report!" he commanded his remaining officers on the bridge of his flagship. Commander Vextar looked exhausted. Her gray skin had turned pale, and her forearms shook as she operated her control station. "We lost another supply convoy yesterday, 3 more destroyers last week. The humans hit our base on Europa and disappeared before we could respond." "How?" Thekvor demanded. "How do they coordinate attacks across multiple planets without any communications we can detect?" The ship's science officer, Dr. Kel Voth, had been studying this question for months. "Admiral, I believe the humans have evolved beyond the need for technological communication. They may have developed some form of natural telepathy." Thekvor wanted to laugh, but nothing about the human war was funny. "Telepathy is theoretical. No species has ever proven it exists." "No species has ever fought a war in complete silence either," Dr. Kelvoth replied. "Yet here we are." Captain Steve Collins floated in the zero-gravity command center of his ship, the Nightfall. Around him, his crew worked in perfect quiet, their movements coordinated like a dance they had practiced 1,000 times. Maria Santos finished installing new weapons she had built from captured alien technology. The humans had discovered something interesting about galactic warfare. Most alien species designed their weapons and ships to be used by many different races. This made them adaptable, but also predictable. Human technology was designed only for humans. It was specialized, focused, and completely alien to anyone who was not from Earth. Ryan Clark piloted the Nightfall through the asteroid belt, hunting for more Karathi supply ships. He did not need orders from Steve. They all knew the mission: find aliens, destroy them, disappear. It was simple and effective. Nicole Turner monitored alien communications from her station. The Karathi were getting desperate. They were calling for reinforcements from the Empire. They were also starting to make mistakes, broadcasting their positions and supply routes in languages they thought humans could not understand. They were wrong. Humans had been listening to galactic communications for decades. On Earth, the war had transformed human society. Cities ran with perfect efficiency but silently. Factory workers assembled weapons and supplies without foremen shouting orders. Traffic moved smoothly with pre-planned routes and timing signals instead of honking horns and radio traffic reports. Lieutenant Tom Jackson led his unit through the ruins of what used to be Chicago. The Karathi had tried to occupy the city 3 times. Each time, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. Tom's soldiers moved like shadows through the broken buildings. They communicated with hand signals that had been taught to every human on Earth. Simple gestures that meant enemy ahead, fall back, attack now, and dozens of other tactical commands. The aliens could not read human body language. They had no idea what the gestures meant. Tom's unit was approaching a Karathi position when he held up his fist. Everyone stopped. He pointed to his eyes, then pointed around a corner. His soldiers understood. Enemy spotted. Prepare for contact. The attack that followed lasted 30 seconds. 15 Karathi soldiers died before they could fire their weapons. The humans disappeared back into the city ruins, leaving behind nothing but alien bodies and confusion. On the observation station above Earth, Zara Vel-9 had stopped sleeping. She spent all her time trying to understand what had happened to the humans. Her reports to the Galactic Council were becoming more desperate with each passing week. The humans have achieved something impossible, she wrote in her latest analysis. They are operating as a single organism across their entire species. Individual human units respond to threats and opportunities with perfect timing, as if they share a collective consciousness. Her assistant Klex was equally puzzled. Senior researcher, maybe they are using some kind of quantum communication we cannot detect? Zara shook her head. I have considered every possibility. Quantum entanglement, subspace communication, genetic memory, pheromone networks. Nothing explains what we are observing. She pulled up a recording from the previous day. Human ships in Earth orbit had attacked a Karathi supply depot. At the exact same moment, human forces on Mars destroyed a Karathi outpost. The timing was perfect down to the second, across millions of miles of space. It should be impossible, Zara muttered. No species can coordinate like this without some form of real-time communication. What Zara did not understand was that humans had learned something that no other galactic species had discovered. Perfect coordination did not require constant communication. It required perfect trust and perfect preparation. Dr. Kevin Walsh stood in the deep underground laboratory where Silent Dawn had been developed. Around him, human scientists and military planners worked on Phase 3 of Earth's war plan. Everything they did was based on a simple principle: plan for everything in advance, then trust people to do their jobs. The beauty of Silent Dawn, Kevin explained to a group of new officers, is that it forces us to think ahead instead of reacting. When you cannot talk to each other during a battle, you have to plan for every possibility before the battle starts. The officers nodded. They had all seen how effective this approach was. Human military units were operating with an efficiency that amazed even their own commanders. What about when the plans do not work? Asked one officer. Kevin smiled. That is why we teach adaptation protocols. Every human soldier, pilot, and commander learns to recognize patterns and respond appropriately. We do not need to tell each other what to do because we all learn the same responses to the same situations. Far from Earth, Jack Morrison and his crew aboard the Meridian were still trying to get home. The trip from Proxima Centauri was taking longer than expected because they had to avoid areas where long-range sensors detected alien activity. "Any word from Earth?" Jack asked Lisa Park. Lisa checked her communication equipment. "Same message as always. Silent Dawn protocols remain active. Maintain course for Earth." Amy Richardson looked worried. "We have been away for almost a year. What if we get home and everything has changed?" Carlos Rivera was monitoring the ship's systems. "According to our long-range sensors, there are a lot of alien ships in Earth's solar system. But there are also a lot of human ships we do not recognize." "What kind of ships?" Jack asked. "Military vessels, I think, but they are not like anything Earth was building when we left." Jack felt a mixture of pride and concern. Humanity was clearly fighting back against the alien invasion, but he worried about what his species had become during his absence. The answer came when they finally reached the edge of Earth's solar system. A sleek human warship appeared next to the Meridian so suddenly that Amy barely had time to react. "Unknown vessel. This is the Earth Defense Ship Hunter," came a calm voice over their radio. "Please identify yourself and state your purpose." "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the UES Meridian, returning from the Proxima Centauri mission," Jack replied. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned. "Captain Morrison, you are cleared for approach to Earth. Please follow our escort and maintain communication silence until debriefing." "Communication silence?" Lisa asked quietly. Jack was beginning to understand. The humans who went to war while he was away had learned something about the power of not talking. His crew would need to learn it too. As the Meridian approached Earth, Jack could see the changes. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet like a metal shell. Human warships patrolled between them in perfect formation. Everything looked organized, efficient, and deadly. But most striking of all, the usual chatter of human radio communications was gone. Earth's space was as quiet as a library. The planet that had once broadcasted constantly to the galaxy was now as silent as a predator waiting in the dark. And somewhere in that dark, Admiral Thekvor was beginning to understand that his empire had made a terrible mistake. They had not invaded a primitive world. They had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before. Something that hunted without making a sound. 1 year after Earth went quiet, the galaxy had learned a new kind of fear. The fear of silence. Colonel Peter Barnes stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, looking out at the former Karathi homeworld of Karath Prime. Below him, the planet bustled with activity as humans and reformed Karathi worked together to rebuild their civilization. But it was all happening in organized quiet. No shouting. No chaos. No waste. "Status report," Peter said to his aide. "Lieutenant Mary." Thompson. Mary checked her tablet. "Reconstruction is ahead of schedule in all sectors. The Karathi civilians have adapted well to our administrative methods. Crime is down 90% from pre-invasion levels. Any resistance movements?" "None detected, sir. Most Karathi seem relieved that we are not treating them the way their empire treated other species." Peter nodded. This was the new way humans governed. Efficiently, fairly, and quietly. They had learned that most problems in the galaxy came from too much talking and not enough listening. Far from Karath Prime, Director Laura Chen managed human operations in the former Karathi territory. She worked from a simple office on the trading world of Nexus 7, coordinating the activities of a dozen star systems without raising her voice or sending unnecessary messages. Laura had been a city planner on Earth before the war. Now she planned the future of civilizations. The skills were surprisingly similar. Both required seeing the big picture, understanding how different parts work together, and making decisions based on facts rather than emotions. The Vorthan. "Delegation is here to see you," her assistant announced. Laura looked up from her reports. The Vorthon were one of several species that had requested meetings with human administrators. They were worried about human expansion and wanted to negotiate treaties. 3 tall, blue-skinned Vorthon entered her office. They moved nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the silence that surrounded all human operations. "Director Chen," their leader began, "I am Ambassador Krelvorth. We come seeking assurance that humanity has no aggressive intentions toward Vorthon space." Laura gestured for them to sit. "Ambassador, humanity seeks stable neighbors, not new enemies. As long as the Vorthon collective poses no threat to human worlds or human allies, we have no reason for conflict." "But you destroyed the Karathi Empire in less than a year," one of the other Vorthon said. "How do we know you will not do the same to us?" Laura's expression remained calm. "The Karathi Empire invaded Earth and attempted to enslave our people. We responded proportionally. The Vorthon collective has made no such hostile actions." The Vorthon exchanged glances. They were used to diplomatic meetings that involved hours of speeches, formal ceremonies, and complex negotiations. Human diplomacy was direct and efficient. "We would like to propose a formal alliance," Ambassador Krelvorth said. "What would this alliance involve?" Laura asked. "Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, cultural exchanges." Laura considered this for a moment. "I will need to consult with Earth Command. You will have an answer within 1 week." The meeting was over in 15 minutes. The Vorthon left looking somewhat stunned by the brevity and directness of human diplomacy. Back on Earth, Jack Morrison and his crew had finally completed their debriefing and been assigned to new duties. The world they returned to was barely recognizable as the one they had left. Cities ran with mechanical precision. Traffic flowed smoothly along pre-planned routes. Work crews assembled massive projects without supervisors shouting orders. Children attended schools where learning happened through demonstration and practice rather than lectures and questions. Everything worked better, but it felt strange to people who remembered the old, noisy way of doing things. "I miss the chaos. Sometimes," Amy Richardson admitted to Jack as they walked through downtown Denver. The city had been rebuilt after the Karathi occupation, but it looked nothing like the old Denver. Buildings were positioned for maximum efficiency. Streets followed logical patterns. Everything was designed to work well rather than look impressive. "It is more efficient this way," Jack replied. "But I know what you mean." They passed a group of children playing in a park. The kids were engaged in some complex game that seemed to involve elaborate hand signals and coordinated movements. "No," one was shouting or arguing. When disagreements arose, they were settled quickly through gestures that all the children seemed to understand. "Even the kids are different now," Amy observed. Carlos Rivera had joined them for the walk. "My nephew says they learn the new communication methods in school now. Hand signals, body language, situational awareness. He can coordinate with his friends better than most military units could before the war." "Is that good or bad?" Amy wondered. "Different," Jack said. "Just different." On the Galactic Council station orbiting Corvus Prime, the final session of the emergency assembly was coming to an end. After weeks of debate, the representatives had reached a decision that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. Representative Neth Quarian stood before the assembly to announce their conclusion. "After careful deliberation, the Galactic Council has voted to offer membership to the human species." The vote had not been unanimous. Several species still feared humanity too much to welcome them into the galactic community, but the majority had concluded that it was better to have humans inside the council than operating outside it. "The formal invitation will be transmitted to Earth immediately," Neth Quarian continued. "We hope this marks the beginning of a new era of cooperation between humanity and the galactic community." What the council did not know was that humans had been monitoring their debates through surveillance devices placed months earlier. General Patricia Hayes already knew about the invitation before it was officially sent. She stood in her command center, reading the intelligence reports from her deep space reconnaissance teams. Human ships had been quietly exploring the galaxy's outer regions, mapping civilizations and potential threats that the Council had never mentioned. "Ma'am," Colonel Peter Barnes said, approaching with a communication tablet. We have received the formal invitation to join the Galactic Council. Patricia looked at the message. It was full of flowery language about cooperation and mutual benefit. It was the kind of message the old, noisy humanity would have celebrated with parades and speeches. "Draft a response," she ordered. "Keep it simple." An hour later, the Galactic Council received humanity's reply. It was brief, direct, and sent chills through every delegate who read it. The human species accepts membership in the Galactic Council. We look forward to working with all peaceful civilizations toward galactic stability and prosperity. We hope the galaxy has been wise during our period of observation. The last line was what terrified them. It implied that humans had been watching and evaluating the Council while the Council thought it was debating humanity's fate. On the observation station above Earth, Zaravel 9 was packing her equipment. Her assignment to study humanity was ending, not because the humans were no longer interesting, but because they had become too important to be studied by a single researcher. Klex helped her seal the data containers that held 3 years of observations. "What do you think will happen now, senior researcher?" Zara looked out at Earth one final time. The planet appeared peaceful, but she knew it was now the center of a growing sphere of human influence that stretched across dozens of star systems. "I think the galaxy is going to learn what it means to have humans as neighbors," she said. "They are not conquerors like the Karathi. They are not traitors like the Vorthan. They are something entirely new." "What are they?" Klex asked. Zara smiled. "Sadly, they are what happens when a species learns that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy is not a gun or a bomb. It is the ability to work together without anyone else understanding how you do it." As her ship departed for the Council station, Zara composed her final report on humanity. It would become required reading for every diplomat and military officer in the galaxy. "Humanity has achieved something unprecedented," she wrote. "They have become a single organism capable of thought and action across interstellar distances. They operate without any communication methods we can detect or understand. Most remarkably, they have done this while maintaining individual creativity and moral judgment." She paused, thinking about the rebuilt worlds she had observed, the efficient colonies, the peaceful integration of former enemies. Recommendation: the galaxy must adapt to the reality of human presence. They are not going away. They are not going to become like us. We must learn to coexist with a species that has mastered the art of strategic silence. The report concluded with a warning that would echo through galactic politics for generations. "Humanity is listening. We hope you have been wise." Far above, Earth General Patricia Hayes stood in the observation deck of the newest human space station. Around her, the command staff worked in their characteristic quiet efficiency, coordinating the activities of their growing interstellar civilization. A communication officer approached with a message tablet. "Ma'am, the Galactic Council is requesting a formal diplomatic meeting to discuss humanity's role in galactic affairs." Patricia read the request. It was formal, respectful, and very nervous. "Schedule the meeting," she ordered, "but make sure they understand our terms." Which are? Terror spread through the galaxy like a disease. Human ships had been spotted in 17 different star systems, striking without warning and leaving no survivors. The Karathi Empire, which had ruled local space for 2,000 years, was falling apart. Admiral Thekvor stood on the bridge of his dying flagship, watching his homeworld of Karath Prime burn on the main screen. Around him, the last survivors of his once mighty fleet prepared for what they all knew would be their final battle. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his tactical officer. 47 combat vessels, Admiral, all damaged. Most are low on ammunition and fuel." Thekvor felt something he had never experienced before in 40 years of conquest. Fear. Not just fear of dying, but fear of what the humans had become. 3 weeks ago, human ships had appeared in the Karath system. Not the crude vessels that first left Earth, but sleek predators that moved like living things. They struck the outer defense stations first, then the supply depots, then the civilian colonies. The humans gave no warning. They demanded no surrender. They simply destroyed everything Karathi and moved on. "Admiral," his communication officer, called out. "We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through," Thekvor ordered. The main screen changed to show a human woman in a dark uniform. She had short gray hair and cold blue eyes. Behind her, Thekvor could see the bridge of a human warship, with crew members working in complete silence. "This is Commander Rachel Stone of the Earth Defense Force," the human said. Her voice was calm and emotionless. "Admiral Thekvor, you have 10 minutes to evacuate your remaining personnel to the planet's surface. After that, we will destroy your ships." "You cannot do this," Thekvor replied. "The Galactic Council has laws about war crimes." Commander Stone's expression did not change. "The Galactic Council watched while you invaded Earth. They made their choice. Now you live with the consequences of yours." The transmission ended. Thekvor looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. In the old days, he would have ordered a final glorious charge, but these were not the old days, and humans were not the enemies he was used to fighting. "Begin evacuation," he commanded. "All ships to the surface, immediately." As the surviving Karathi abandoned their fleet, human ships moved into attack position with mechanical precision. Commander Rachel Stone watched from the bridge of her ship, the Shadowhawk. Around her, her crew prepared for the final strike against the Empire that had dared to invade Earth. Her crew included Dr. Andrew Kim, who had left his job as a university professor to design weapons for the war. His specialty was turning alien technology against its creators. Every weapon on the Shadowhawk had been improved using captured Karathi equipment. Sarah Mitchell, the ship's pilot, had learned to fly by playing video games before the war. Now she could make a massive warship, dance through space like a fighter jet. Her movements were so precise that the ship's artificial gravity never shifted, no matter how sharp her turns. Tony Rodriguez had been an auto mechanic before becoming the Shadowhawk's engineer. He understood machines better than most people understood themselves. Under his care, the ship's engines ran so quietly that enemy sensors often could not detect them until it was too late. "All targets locked," Dr. Kim reported from his weapons station. "Beginning attack run," Sarah announced as she guided the ship toward the Karathi fleet. The Battle of Karath Prime lasted exactly 6 minutes and 43 seconds. When it was over, the Karathi Empire's military no longer existed. 47 warships had been reduced to glowing debris floating in space. Admiral Thekvor watched from the planet's surface as his life's work burned in orbit above him. Around him, thousands of Karathi refugees stared at the sky in shock. Many of them were crying, a sound like metal tearing. A human landing craft descended from orbit and touched down nearby. Commander Rachel Stone emerged, accompanied by a small group of soldiers. They moved with the same silent precision that had destroyed the Karathi fleet. Thekvor expected to be shot, but instead the humans began distributing food and medical supplies to the refugees. It was confusing. "Why help the people you had just defeated?" "Admiral Thekvor," Commander Stone said, approaching him. "My government has a message for you." She handed him a small device that projected a holographic image of General Patricia Hayes. The human leader looked tired, but determined. "To the survivors of the Karathi Empire," the recording began. "Earth does not seek the destruction of your people. We seek the end of your aggression. Your military is broken. Your fleets are destroyed. But your civilians will be protected under Earth administration until you can govern yourselves peacefully." The message continued, outlining terms for reconstruction and eventual self-government. It was more generous than anything the Karathi had ever offered to their own victims. Admiral Thekvor looked at Commander Stone. "Why? We invaded your world. We killed your people. Why show mercy now?" Commander Stone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because we are not you, Admiral. We fight to protect, not to conquer." On the observation station orbiting Earth, Zara, Phil9 was writing what she knew would be her final report on humanity. Her hands shook as she typed, not from fear but from awe. "The human species has achieved something unprecedented in galactic history," she wrote. "They have transformed from a chaotic, individualistic society into a unified organism capable of coordinated action across interstellar distances. Their military efficiency exceeds that of any known species, yet they show restraint and mercy to defeated enemies. Her assistant Klex looked over her shoulder. What do you think will happen next, senior researcher? Zara considered the question. The galaxy will never be the same, Klex. For 10,000 years we have operated under the assumption that spacefaring civilizations must communicate constantly to function effectively. Humans have proven that assumption wrong. She pulled up tactical recordings of recent human operations. Ships coordinating attacks across multiple star systems. Ground forces responding to threats before they fully developed. Entire campaigns executed with perfect timing and zero intercepted communications. They have learned to think as one mind while maintaining individual creativity and initiative, Zara continued. It should be impossible, but they have done it. The Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session on the neutral world of Corvus Prime. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss what they were calling the human problem. Nethquarian, who had once dismissed humanity as harmless, now stood before the assembly with a very different message. Fellow delegates, he began, we must acknowledge our grave error in judgment. The species we catalogued as Class C has demonstrated military capabilities that exceed those of any known civilization. Worried murmurs filled the great assembly hall. Several representatives demanded immediate military action to contain humanity. Others argued for diplomatic contact. A few suggested hiding until the humans lost interest in galactic affairs. What evidence do we have of human intentions? Asked Representative Veltar of the Crystalline Federation. Nethquarian activated a holographic display showing human-controlled space. In the past 8 months, humans have destroyed the Karathi Empire, established administrative zones in 17 star systems, and begun reconstruction of damaged worlds. Their expansion has been methodical and precise. Are they preparing to conquer the entire galaxy? Asked another delegate. Unknown, Nethquarian replied. Human forces have made no aggressive moves towards systems not previously controlled by the Karathi. They appear to be consolidating their gains rather than expanding further. But even as the council debated, human ships were moving deeper into unexplored space, not as conquerors, but as explorers seeking new threats to Earth and its growing sphere of influence. The galaxy had learned to fear the quiet species from the small blue world, but humanity's next lesson would be even more shocking. They were not finished teaching.